Was it all a dream? Sounds cliche, I know, but in this video I'm going to talk about the dream sequences in The Sopranos and how they might connect to both Tony's coma and the end of the whole show. There are many dream sequences in the show. Christopher has a dream, Dr. Melfi has a dream. Most of the dreams are Tony's. In the real world, you may take your dreams seriously and look for signs and how they affect your life or messages from your subconscious. Or you may think dreams are merely a way for your brain to unpack the senses you've experienced in recent waking life and are not all that important. That's fine either way, but we as the audience have to look at Tony's dreams as having been deliberately written by the writers to convey some signs and messages meant for us. One of the most dream-centric episodes is The Funhouse, the last episode of Season 2. In this episode, Tony gets food poisoning and repeatedly goes in and out of dreams. Some of these dreams are simple, wanting a better relation with his family and a bright, seemingly simple future. Others involve Dr. Melfi. Most of the dream is centered around Big Pussy being a rat. Tony's subconscious could not be more clear about this, and he even talks to Big Pussy, who appears as a fish, about to go to sleep. Of course, it's a lot more than a dream that leads to Pussy's demise. Other deceased people appear in Tony's dreams as well, like Gloria, who committed suicide, and Ralph Cifaretto, who Tony kills in a fight, as well as his own cousin, who also was killed by Tony, though he seems to take on a different role in the comatose dream world after Tony got shot, as even Tony himself does. His dream self seems to be unsure of his own identity, and he's mistaken for a man named Kevin Finnerty. Perhaps the name Kev Infinity sounds like infinity, which could be a reference to eternity, which leads me to Tony's coma. Tony is about to go into the house, where there is what is likely a family reunion, as in an ancestral family reunion. He sees a woman whose face we don't get a glimpse of, only that the hair is definitely not Olivia, Tony's mom. Perhaps a grandmother, or perhaps a spirit guide ready to take you to the next room. Tony doesn't ever let go of the suitcase, and he never chooses to walk into the house. However, the light engulfs him, and our POV returns to what Tony sees, and he sees himself go into a bright light. Typically, the belief is that going into this light leads to your death.
You see? Here they come.
Walking into it is releasing yourself from this world. It's as if there is a point when you are faced with the light that you may not have any choice in the matter. The light may simply pull you in. Into what is the question? Tony's coma then leads me all the way to the last episode, Made in America. I've unpacked this scene in another video where I go into who I think had Tony killed and why. This link will be in the description. This video received hundreds of comments of people telling me who they think did it, and the thing is, they all have a point, and anyone's interpretation is a valid opinion. But the last episode and the last scene specifically may be too complex to get a simple take on it at face value. It has symbolism, it's a little surreal, and it cuts to black. The music stops mid-beat, and that's all she wrote. We don't hear a gunshot, but then again, Bobby surmised that when you die, specifically if you get murdered by the mob, you won't even hear it when it happens. In the scene with Silvio, it takes a few seconds to register that the man in front of him was just shot. So it's definitely possible that Tony was shot. Or did any of it really happen? Before you tell me that the trope of it all being a dream is cliche, stop and think about the show you've been watching. With all the dreams we've been seeing again and again, we take part inside the head of the characters dreaming. We are an omnipresent audience. We don't just see what these characters do, we occasionally see inside their minds. So the theory is, Tony Soprano died in the hospital. The scene we saw was not a fade out from blackness of a coma, it was a fade into the white light of the afterlife. He went into the light, and everything we saw afterwards was in his head, like the story and episode Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. That was a story written by Ambrose Bierce about a man who is about to be executed by hanging, whose mind concocted an elaborate escape story which we, the audience, see. We see for the better part of a half an hour. In the Twilight Zone version of this story, Season 5, Episode 22, how the man escapes against all odds from his execution after having plunged into the river below the bridge when his noose rope breaks. There's even the parallel between that episode and the last episode of The Sopranos, in which the man runs to his wife who seems to be out of reach. He runs and runs, and yet she stays so close but so far, which is similar to Meadow having trouble parking. It's so simple, but yet she tries to park and can't seem to get it right, while Tony waits for her inside. In the occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, the man finally reaches his wife, but is snapped backward, and the scene cuts to his execution by hanging. In reality, only a few seconds had elapsed. It was all in his head. In The Sopranos, just as his daughter was about to enter, Tony too may have been snapped back as soon as he sees her enter. All of this too, going back to the hospital scene, could have been in his head. What we saw was Tony fading into white light and returning to the hospital room, which mimics the scene in occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge when the man plunges into the water. That never really happened in reality. Then we experience a mostly normal show the rest of the season with some exceptions. Tony wins incredibly big repeatedly on the roulette table, a game with the worst odds for a casino player. Paulie sees the Virgin Mary, a cat seems to be the reincarnation of either Adriana or Christopher, a man explains how everything is connected, how we are all one thing.
Well, it's actually an illusion, those two boxes are separate entities.
What the fuck? Illusion?
The separate entities is simply the way we choose to perceive them. The boxes, you, me, we're all part of the same quantum field. Well, think of the two boxes as ocean waves or currents of air, two tornadoes, say. They appear to be two things, right? Two separate things, but they're not.
Which might be Tony's mind trying to explain his remaining existence. At Holston's, when he looks up, he sees Meadow, whose voice seemed to save him earlier from dying in the hospital.
What is that?
But in this theory, helps him cross over into the next stage. You could call it limbo or purgatory. Whatever it is, that's what we're seeing. The people in the restaurant represent people in Tony's life, people he may have screwed over, people who worked for him. Then, once again, his daughter, who he was probably closest to throughout the show, his voice of reason. A voice he should have listened to more.
Oh, the voice.
Please, let me take that from you. Looks like it weighs a ton.
I don't want to.
Well, you need to. You need to let go.
And the sight of her sends him into the next stage. And since none of us can know what that is, it goes black, rather than fade to white as we saw earlier. And Tony moves on, having left this earthly world, succumbing to his gunshot wound, and everything we've seen after could have occurred in mere minutes of our time. Obviously, this is not meant to be the end-all be-all of Sopranos ending theories. The ending cuts to black, and it's open to interpretation. This is just one more possibility. So if you liked the video, please click thumbs up. I'm sure you have an idea of what happened to Tony at the end of the show, so if you disagree with this video, please let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching.